It's time we had a talk about your hair.
I couldn't agree more. Avatar: The Last Airbender is a stylish runway of chic looks, costume swaps, and innovative hairstyles that us rubes never quite appreciated. What is this? How does someone do this daily? What? Just what? Look, every single character from the Kyoshi Warriors to Lord Evil himself had an opinion on their hair. Haircuts are an oft underlooked part of character design, but they're a handy shortcut to communicate a ton of information about a person, as well as the greater world building of a setting. In Avatar, for instance, each of the 4 nations have distinct hair identities between them. In the Fire Nation, nearly every man and most women wear a triangular top knot of some kind. It's essentially ubiquitous, and top knots are given a gargantuan amount of social importance in the Fire Nation, related to honor and identity and social status, possibly dating all the way back to the ancient Sun Warriors. The fact top knots are everywhere makes it so the few characters who don't have one are made all the more fascinating because of it. There's always a specific reason why someone doesn't wear one. The next most famous look in the series is probably hair loopies, and trailing distantly behind them, the Water Tribe's warrior wolf tails. For our 2 Water Tribe leads, the hairstyles are explicitly emulating members of their immediate family that they look up to. Katara inherited her hairstyle from her grandmother, much like her necklace. You could say it's a kind of heirloom. Meanwhile, for Sokka, the wolf tail is worn as a sign of pride, of being a warrior just like his father. These 2 broad hairstyles seem to be the norm across the Water Tribes. The northern versions of them are just far more ornate and sophisticated. This creates a shared visual language across the tribes, while also emphasizing how they differ from each other. And that leaves us with the Earth Kingdom's haircuts. Earth Kingdom looks are the most varied, and don't truly have a unified design language, which reflects how vast and independent the different regions of the Earth Kingdom are. Toph is a particularly interesting case. We know she resents her privileged upbringing, yet she is very fond of her prim and proper bun, and there's actually some evidence she enjoys doing her own hair. This adds a depth to her character and relationship with femininity, while still sporting a look that reads to the viewer as tomboyish. Toph's hair is also just an enigmatic force of nature for other reasons. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but this video is not prepared to have that conversation. So brushing right past that, there's another dimension to all of these hairstyles that must be mentioned. They're real-life inspirations. Fire and Earth Kingdom hair draw from an assortment of historical Asian societies. For sure, it would take hours just to point them all out throughout the series. Less so in the Water Tribes. Hair loopies are real, but their addition to the series was merely a happy accident. And if Sokka's hair wanted to look accurate, it would be something more like this. Still, some other Water Tribe characters' hair has more inspired origins. Now there is one nation's haircuts who I haven't brought up yet. The Airbenders. Shaved hair is still a haircut, one that's built on a real tradition of Buddhist monks shaving their heads. But to talk about that, we need to get to the actual point of this video. How Avatar: The Last Airbender uses hair as part of individual character arcs. In this case, Aang. A rare quality of Avatar: The Last Airbender is that characters' hair is allowed to grow episode to episode. While I'm sure that was hell for the character designers, it does add more weight to characters whose hair doesn't change, because it means they are actively maintaining their chosen haircut. This is blatantly true of the air nomads, who unlike the other nations with their fancy hairstyles, just straight up shave their heads. Not a lot of personality there, which is part of the point. Buddhist monks, or at least the sects that shave their head, do so as a symbol of renouncing their attachments and desires, as part of their belief system. Aang himself is admittedly pretty bad at renouncing his attachments, but the hair still operates as a stand-in for his cultural beliefs. Aang's shaved head carries a second meaning too, though. It operates as visual shorthand that he's, well, a kid. Aang awakens to the narrative like a bald, newborn child. It's meant to be a signifier that he's innocent and untouched by the 100 years of trauma and imperialism that have ravaged the world. Aang's carefree attitude is a play on this concept. He hasn't lost his sense of fun and curiosity, unlike Katara and Sokka, who have long been burdened by responsibilities. Aang has sheltered an outlook from living in a time of peace, and part of that means teaching people to be less of a buzzkill. More seriously though, much of the story is dedicated to examining whether Aang's idealistic worldview is naive and childish, or an outlook worth striving to uphold. I should mention that there's one more utilitarian reason that he is bald. It makes him super iconic and marketable. Everyone recognizes Aang instantly. This makes him painfully identifiable as an airbender and the Avatar, in a way that is easy to conceal when warranted, and easy to reveal when dramatically relevant. The fact Aang continues to actively shave his head, despite the risks it poses to him, highlights how unashamed and relaxed Aang is about his identity in the early seasons. His shaved head ultimately is a political act. He wants to stand as an icon to show the world that the Avatar is back. And his haircut is living proof that the Fire Nation hasn't succeeded in snuffing him out and suppressing his culture. Which makes it all the more tragic when, come season 3, Aang falls and does have to suppress his culture. Following Aang's defeat in Ba Sing Se, he and his friends are forced to go into hiding and infiltrate the Fire Nation. While everyone adopts snazzy new Fire Nation haircuts, it's different for Aang. Aang has just gone from a metaphorical birth through a literal death. He's let the world down. He fucking died. He's ashamed of his failure, and he's forced to contend with the burdens of his responsibilities, and that he's not living up to them. He's no longer allowed to just be a sweet, innocent kid. And so, the narrative robs him of the primary signifier of that innocence, his shaved head. Aang's story has always been about the struggle between his culture and the demands the war puts on isolating him from it. And in this moment, the war has won in that fight. He feels he's being forced to assimilate. He's being asked to abandon his culture. And he's lost confidence in his idealism, that he can overcome these hurdles just with his friends. A close shave with death will do that. He does rise out of this low point, but as someone who's forced to grow and change. He accepts that he must become more pragmatic moving forward. He abandons his glider. He covers his arrow. But he still leaves room for at least a symbolic protest where he can. While Aang is willing to compromise his presentation to a point, he has not abandoned his idealism, just tempered it. Zuko's look is probably the most noticeable hair of the lot, and he probably wins the award for most iconic hair in the series, if only by overstuffing the ballot box. His original look, the ponytail, actually has some subtle storytelling going on with its origins. The hair seems to be inspired by Thai culture, specifically a top knot worn by children. We're never told why Zuko takes on the ponytail, but we can make some inferences. As a kid, he doesn't have it. Instead, he has a very standard, very conservative, royal family, Fire Nation look. He still doesn't have it years later when he fights his dad in the Agni Kai, but flash forward shortly into his banishment and bam, ponytail. Zuko shaved his head after getting burned, seemingly so that his initial scarring could heal. That makes the hair a direct result of his trauma, and the look visually marks a shift in his life from innocent princeling to exiled avatar stalker. The Mad Lad then held on to this exact look for 3 years, during which, as far as we can tell, he had no character development, barely spoke to his crew, and continued to be an entitled asshole to his kindly uncle. The ponytail ushered in a bitter stagnation for Zuko's emotional maturity. Then comes Season 2 where he is properly made an enemy of his home. Zuko symbolically cuts his top knot, demarking a new stage in his life. There's a lot of ways to interpret this scene culturally, all of them interesting. If you view it through a traditional Chinese or Korean lens, Zuko is renouncing his ties to his father. Confucians viewed hair as a precious gift from one's parents, and to cut one's hair was seen as an act of disloyalty. If you view it through the traditional Japanese lens, Zuko is renouncing his status in the Fire Nation society and abandoning his titles. Much like a samurai seeking to join the peasantry would cut off his top knot and undergo a dramatic decline in social status. And if you view it through a traditional Thai lens, Zuko's haircutting is a rite of passage. He's leaving behind childhood and beginning his journey into adulthood. All of these interpretations also play well with the fact that Zuko is now, officially, in exile from his home. He's lost his security blanket, which also comes with losing the narrative his home gave him. Zuko's quest to capture the Avatar has been an emotional crutch he's held onto for 3 years. Hunt the Avatar, find the Avatar, and that will fix everything. But now he must grapple in earnest with the story of his life he tells himself. Who is he outside of the Fire Nation? What is his identity now? It's time for him to start asking himself the big questions.
Who are you? And what do you want?
It's time for him to grow up. It's no coincidence that this is when Zuko's character arc really starts kicking into high gear. He wanders the Earth, he experiences the reality of the Fire Nation's war, he sees the abandoned countryside, he lives his life as an impoverished refugee, and perhaps most harrowing of all, he goes on a date with a cute girl. Zuko's challenged in so many ways that put into question what he thinks about his life and who he has to be. He makes choices he never could have imagined having made before. He, and his hair, grow. It's admittedly pretty on the nose. But old habits die hard, and one ill-advised relapse later, Zuko rejects this growth, and returns to the Fire Nation anyways. He attempts to tie up his hair behind his old Fire Nation top knot, but this identity doesn't fit him anymore. It's not who he is. And so, despite himself, his hair keeps coming down in key moments when he's honest with himself, notably when he's visiting his uncle, or when he's examining his emotional wounds. Until eventually Zuko realizes he can't keep living his life this way, and lets his hair down, alongside abandoning the Fire Nation once again, this time by choice. Let's wrap up with my personal favorite case of using hair to examine a character, Azula. Azula fixates on her hair consciously, all the way from her introduction. She has the exact same preferred look from childhood all through the end. 2 perfect, symmetrical bangs, with the rest tucked up in that classic Fire Nation top knot. the meticulous maintenance of her hair becomes a proxy for her perfectionism. And any perceived flaw within herself is shown through unkempt hair. Her hair must be perfect, because she must be perfect. Perfect in her presentation, the perfect princess, able to flawlessly lie whenever needed. Her hair represents her control of a situation, so it only makes sense that it's damaged once she's losing control. Azula's hair becomes one of the first casualties of her villainous breakdown. She starts firing all of her servants out of a paranoid delusion, and the very first people she fires are the servants who maintain her hair for her, forcing her to have to do it herself, which,
Alright, hair, it's time to face your doom.
Yeah. For both the Fire siblings, haircutting is representative of fresh trauma and unhealed emotional wounds. But for Azula, there's nothing but an obsessive effort to maintain what she sees as perfect, until she can't help but tear it all apart. It's ultimately born of fragility. She may seem perfect, but it only took some cutting remarks from her best friend to topple her. Azula may ultimately not be able to reconcile herself, but this is not true for Zuko and Aang. Zuko finds a different top knot, one that unifies the two conflicting sides of his psyche, and this hairpiece lets him invent a new image for himself separate from the imperial baggage of his father. One that he chooses. Or I would say that, if he ever wore the dang thing. Motherfuckers, did they just forget about this thing? Really, he adopts the role of the Fire Lord, but still lets his hair down around his friends. Aang, meanwhile, after coming out of his lowest point, ultimately returns to his original haircut. His airbender culture and beliefs survived the events of the war, unscathed, as did his idealism. Aang remains unyielding in not having to choose between his responsibilities and his ideals, and the war has failed to force him to sacrifice one over the other. This spiritual victory comes to define the end of his journey. He doesn't have to lose who he is inside, all shown through his haircut. Azula could learn a lot from them, and hey, maybe she will. Maybe Azula still has a future redemption waiting for her in the comics. But if it comes, I'm betting it will come with a haircut attached. I mean, it certainly wouldn't be the first time characters' hair was given additional meaning after the end of the story. And yeah, that's that. This might seem like a fringe topic, but I'm really only brushing the surface of this. There's a lot of other ways to analyze characters' hair. It can compare them to each other in the eyes of the audience, and it can emphasize their differences. Hair choice can be practical, like with Ty Lee, where her hair guides the audience's eyes to follow her acrobatic motions. Hair also interfaces with broader expectations and tropes. We can ask if hair is subverting or upholding gendered expectations. Hair can also be used to signpost how the audience should feel about a character. Should we trust them? Are they silly? Is what the hair is asking us to feel true? Hair can even add weight to combat. Many characters' hair transforms over the course of the fight, often representing a brutal vulnerability to those moments. We haven't even talked about Legend of Korra, which also adds a whole new swath of meaningful haircuts to consider. Many different symbolic associations, a handful of cute visual puns, a strange fixation on resembling American presidents. Their universe now has hair dye, which I personally am a big fan of. I invite you to start combing through your favorite characters. Outside of Avatar too. Why do you think the character's hair works? Maybe their hair has deep storytelling and philosophical implications. Or hey, maybe their hair's just neat. Okay. Sorry to cut our time short, but I wanted to take a second to say thank you to the handful of patrons I've gotten so far. It really means a lot, and I really appreciate it. Okay, that's all for now. Take care.